In a universe driven by relentless competition, assassination has evolved into the most efficient method to eliminate rivals. Our protagonist, known as Lei, is regarded as the most dangerous of them all. The story begins at the clandestine headquarters of the Knights of Glory Guild, where their leader, Devia, receives critical intelligence from her spy. One of her knights questions the necessity of a single assassin, but Devia interrupts, emphasizing that Lei is exceptional and that vigilance is vital when facing him. Suddenly, a swarm of birds fills the hall, startling everyone. Devia commands her soldiers to attack, but the birds are revealed to be bombs, detonating in a devastating blast that shatters the fortress. Amidst the chaos, the remaining knights cry out for their leader. Devia appears unscathed, a magic circle glowing on her chest, yet her survival hinges on a rare protective pendant she wears, which absorbs one fatal attack. Regaining her footing, she urgently warns her team about Lei's formidable power and urges caution, but escalation is swift. An even larger explosion crashes through the remnants of the fortress, leaving Devia to wonder how it all happened, suspecting a concealed magical device. As she gazes skyward, she notices an approaching object, a mechanical beetle mapping the area. Several miles away, Lei reveals he has not planted traditional explosives, but embedded a magical device into rocks, transforming them into lethal bombs. Instead of detonating at shallow depths, which are effective, he uses magic to make the rocks deadly regardless of depth. Meanwhile, he observes the destruction through a holographic display projected by a mechanical bird perched on his hand, receiving a message indicating his mission was just a simulation in the virtual realm of VLOO. In this digital universe, bombs only work if planted within 5 meters. Beyond that, the Earth absorbs the explosion, rendering it harmless to high-level players. Lei's method deviates from standard explosives. He crafts magic-infused rocks, turning them into deadly weapons that challenge detection. Over time, familiar assassination techniques are uncovered and countered, but Lei's advantage lies in his inventive craftsmanship. He constantly invents new killing methods whenever old ones are thwarted, always staying a step ahead. His class, Craftsman, has made him the greatest assassin in this virtual reality MMORPG. In VLOO, death carries severe penalties. Losing a level, which represents over 100 hours of progress, and a 3-day suspension from the game. For powerful players, losing a level is a significant setback, and the 3-day ban can be devastating during guild wars, where losing a key member risks total defeat. Actual death only occurs when confronting bosses or other players, and due to numerous protection items, killing a high-level rival remains a formidable challenge. Members of elite guilds often wielded multiple of these specialized items, rendering their regular attacks nearly ineffective with a success rate of merely 2%. This is precisely where assassins played a crucial role. The most formidable guilds enlisted dozens of them to conduct covert battles. While many relied on combat classes like archers or dual swordsmen, Leet distinguished himself as a master of cunning tactics, eliminating targets through poisons, explosives, and devious tricks. His greatest advantage was that no one could predict or counter his unique approach. Typically, assassins achieved about a 15% success rate, but Leet's record was extraordinary. Out of 1,000 missions, he succeeded in over 99.9%. Only once did he fail, earning him a reputation as the best assassin within VLOO. Then, he received a rare priority message, a call for help from someone calling herself Goddess Mises. Leet was puzzled, unsure who the sender might be. Naturally, he suspected a prank, especially since in VLOO, the word God was banned from players' names to avoid impersonations. He decided to investigate further. If the message was genuine, he should be able to find her. Suddenly, a notification appeared, and to his astonishment, it was from Goddess Mises herself. Leet was stunned by her existence. The self-proclaimed deity explained that, having created the game, she had the right to call herself whatever she pleased. Yet Leet remained skeptical, convinced she was simply a peculiar individual. Ignoring his doubts, she quickly got straight to the point, requesting he assassinate Messer, an evil god from another realm. Leet had never heard of Messer but assumed the task would be straightforward, knowing all the top players. He then inquired about payment, asking for gold to simplify the exchange. The goddess promptly offered 1,000 tons of pure gold. Her offer confirmed his suspicion. This person was completely out of her mind. Frustrated, Leet told her to take things more seriously, but she insisted she was entirely serious. She calculated that 1,000 tons of gold would be worth about 5 trillion units of currency, promising to pay him from the other world. The mention of another world left Leet even more perplexed and intrigued. Despite how bizarre the situation was, he took a deep breath and accepted her quest. Immediately, the goddess erupted into celebration. She expressed gratitude, explaining that if he refused, she'd have no choice but to await her death, a fate she described as worse than death. For her, this was more than just a game. Suddenly, a teleportation stone appeared before him and activated on its own. Leet was stunned, knowing such an object should only respond to his commands. Before he could ask questions, the goddess warned him she was sending him directly to the mission site. He tried to request a moment to prepare, fearing he couldn't carry his items into an unknown realm, but she corrected him. This was not a different map, but an entirely different world. He reassures him that his skills will remain valuable, and that his true target is the evil god Mazerator. She assures him she has prepared the perfect location for his mission. Within moments, he is whisked away to a dense, vibrant forest, and he immediately wonders where he has ended up. Sarcastically, he questions whether this peaceful place is the serene spot she had mentioned. To confirm his location, he tries to access his item box GPS, only to find his inventory completely empty. The goddess's words prove true. He cannot carry any items with him. Frustration wells up as he switches to the communication icon, asking what forest he's in, but no response comes. The connection is broken. He surveys his surroundings and notices that the scenery resembles Villaloo's landscapes, yet every detail seems surreal. The quality of the visuals is extraordinarily high, so detailed that his PC could never run graphics this flawless. It then dawns on him, he has truly been transported to another world. Suddenly, the goddess's voice returns. Losing patience, he demands to know what's happened. She explains that, because of a lack of power, she couldn't send him to the intended destination. Confused, he asks what she means by a lack of power. She reveals that her influence has waned since her followers have diminished. Her divine strength depends entirely on their faith. Without followers, gods weaken and eventually disappear. To make matters worse, the other deities have already been eradicated by Mazerator, the evil god. With this revelation, Lev finally understands his true purpose. He was hired to eliminate a goddess's rival, who is on the verge of vanishing. He then inquires why Mazerator so possesses enormous power despite her own weakness. She explains that he has fabricated false religions to steal followers and commanded his believers to attack or torture worshippers of other gods. At that moment, he realizes that to eliminate a god, he must first serve as the instrument of their downfall by destroying their followers. Suddenly, the connection flickers and cuts out. Lu asks what's happening. In a crackling voice, she responds that her power is reaching its limit. Desperately, he questions whether she will abandon him there. In her final words, she promises that if he defeats Mazerator, she will regain her strength and grant him his reward. The call ends abruptly, leaving him alone in the forest. He takes a deep breath, regretting having accepted such a perilous mission. Yet a faint smile appears on his face. Despite everything, he senses that this is the most intriguing challenge he's ever faced. He quickly recognizes that his first priority must be to secure his basic needs. As he explores, he wonders if he can still utilize his VLO skills. Not wasting time, he activates his enemy search ability. To his relief, it functions perfectly, revealing multiple monsters with moderate threat levels. The forest is clearly dangerous. With that in mind, he prepares to begin his survival journey. First, he casts a spell to create pure water. His magic works flawlessly, proving he can still leverage his crafting skills. From this point on, surviving in this strange new world seems entirely achievable. He understood that confronting a demon empty-handed would spell disaster, so quickly seeking metal became his top priority. Soon, he stumbled upon a crucial find: bauxite, an aluminum rich or essential for crafting various tools and items. Lucky to come across it so early, he had hoped for iron sand, but with none available, bauxite would suffice for now. Using his extraction skill, he targeted the pure aluminum within the ore, channeling magic to separate the metal from the rock and shape it swiftly. In moments, he possessed a perfect cube of aluminum weighing approximately half a kilogram. Yet, a solid block alone was useless, so he prepared for the next stage of crafting. Employing his transformation skill, he molded the metal into a long, razor-sharp needle. Shortly after, he spotted a toxic plant called dead nip in the underbrush. Carefully, he ground it to extract its lethal poison. His next move was to coat the needle's tip with the venom, turning it into a deadly, precise weapon. Once finished, he stored it safely in his item box. With the poison needle ready, he felt more confident to face the local monsters. However, when he tried to check his status screen, no system response followed. The realization sank in. He could no longer see his attributes or levels, unlike in the game interface. Without that information, gauging his strength or enemy stats became impossible. The only option was to test his combat skills physically. He readied himself and delivered a powerful kick against a nearby tree, which shattered under his force. This confirmed that his VLO skills remained effective, and he celebrated his progress, thinking his survival was now practically assured on an easy difficulty setting. As night approached, he decided to build a shelter. Using his transformation skill, he crafted a makeshift saw and started cutting logs. After preparing the materials and clearing the ground, he positioned himself to begin construction. With a command, he activated a potent magic that caused the logs to fly and assemble seamlessly. In only seconds, a sturdy log cabin materialized in the clearing. Inside, he noted that the space was larger than necessary for a single person but paid it little mind. His focus shifted to acquiring food and magic stones, crucial resources for his future plans. Magic items relied on these stones for power, and their quality depended entirely on the craftsman's skill. The challenge was obtaining one, which required extracting the core directly from a demon's body. Without hesitation, he decided it was time to go hunting. Leet understood that tools alone wouldn't suffice. Turning his attention to the remaining wood, he crafted a more versatile weapon. Employing his transformation technique, he shaped a sturdy bow, yet quickly realized it lacked a string and arrows. He gathered fibers from nearby plants, spinning them into ultra-durable magic threads to craft the perfect bowstring. At last, his weapon was ready for its first real test in combat. Carrying a quiver full of arrows on his back, Leet set out on his hunt. Using his tracking skill once more, he spotted a target only a few meters away. Suddenly, an enormous frog demon materialized before him. Leet found the creature intriguing, as besides the stone in its chest, it looked quite edible. Without hesitation, he released an arrow, striking the beast squarely. The unfortunate frog had little chance. These monsters proved weaker than he had anticipated. The frog leapt high in an attempt to escape. Leet had already predicted this move and, while the creature was airborne, unleashed a volley of arrows. His reasoning was straightforward. If one shot wasn't enough, multiple would do the trick. The demon was swiftly brought down, and Leet celebrated his success, knowing he had secured both dinner and valuable resources. Back at his cabin, he skewered the frog and began butchering it, feeling fortunate about the high-quality meat acquired on his first day. With sustenance, water, and shelter established, he considered his survival journey to be falling easily into place. Still, he acknowledged that proper dissection required technique, especially with poisonous monsters. That was when he found what he needed: the creature's poison sacs, an essential resource for an assassin. He carefully extracted the sacs, which the frog typically carried about 10 of throughout its body. He was meticulous to avoid puncturing any, preventing contamination of the meat or loss of poison. Collecting each toxic sac with precision, he set aside the valuable resources for future use. Once the poison was secured, he opened the monster's body further, eager to find his main prize. the magic stone within. Leet pondered what kind of magical core might be hidden inside. His experience told him that stronger demons housed larger, more potent stones. And there it was, a glowing, pulsing gemstone radiating energy. His mission was truly accomplished. He now possessed a stockpile of poison, a magic stone, and enough food to sustain him over the coming days. His ultimate aim remained to eliminate Masrajur, even though he didn't know whether the god was truly evil or whether he could trust the goddess Mises. But for the top assassin in VO, the motives of the gods mattered little. His only concern was to fulfill the contract. Several hours later, Leet began crafting a magical device. He set up his workbench to create a tool capable of detecting magic in his surroundings. While recalling the process, uncertainties about the materials in this world lingered, yet he decided to proceed despite the risks. Using his transformation skill, he manipulated raw matter with extreme precision, confident in his abilities to craft the necessary instrument. The initial prototype resembled a finely crafted tool, a delicate yet powerful instrument suitable for subtle and mystical tasks. After giving it a cautious swing, he promptly observed that the device responded precisely to his command. With that confirmed, Lu commenced the process of infusing it with magic. As he shaped the metal, the rhythmic sounds of hammering echoed throughout the cabin. This creation was designed to react solely when encountering genuine spellcasters, since while monsters and beasts possess mana, only humans could unleash intricate magic. To enhance its sensitivity, he forged a specialized needle to serve as a long-range antenna. After considerable effort, the needle became saturated with mana, reaching the limits permitted by the basic materials. Once all components were prepared, he began assembling his new device. Using adhesive and enchantment spells, he bonded a magic stone, crafted in the form of a frog, to the metal base. Thus, the magic detector was finally completed. Analyzing its capabilities, Lu estimated its detection range to be no less than 1 kilometer, a promising start. To verify its functionality, he conducted a simple test by using magic to create water. Immediately, the device vibrated, confirming that the detection system worked flawlessly. Relaxed now that everything was operational, he took a sip of the magical water. Soon, hunger reminded him to break the brief rest. Gathering leftover wood scraps, he prepared to start a fire. Attempting to cast a spell to ignite the kindling, he quickly realized that much of his mana had already been spent on earlier creations, leaving him nearly depleted. With what little remained, he used the simplest magic to light the fire and get his barbecue going. Before long, skewers of frog meat sizzled over the flames, releasing fragrant aromas that deepened his hunger. Watching the meat turn golden, he thought that, for a first day, this meal was shaping up remarkably well. He decided to ensure the meat was thoroughly cooked so as to avoid stomach trouble. For the final touch, he skillfully extracted pure salt from a mineral to season the meat, enhancing its flavor even further. Upon the first bite, he was captivated by its juicy, chicken-like taste. A true explosion of flavors. The meat proved much fattier and richer than he had expected, transforming this meal into a luxurious experience. Quickly devouring it all, he reflected on the old saying that for someone stranded in another world, hunger truly was the best seasoning. With dinner over, the quiet of night settled over the surroundings, and Lu finally retreated inside the cabin. He faced the dilemma of what to do with the remaining mountain of meat, wary of wasting anything. He even considered building a magical refrigerator but realized lacking enough energy stones to craft such a complex device. Facing limited options, Late decided to store his leftover meat in his item box, hoping time would pass slowly enough to prevent spoilage. Once inside his small shelter, he reflected that his new life still lacked many basic comforts. Lying on the gritty floor, he realized that while he yearned to find others, venturing out without proper gear would be risking his life. Preparing for the day ahead, his top priority would be crafting potions, as he refused to fight unprotected again. As dawn broke hours later, Late stepped out of his cabin with a heavy expression, feeling the stiffness from his first night outside Vo. His muscles ached, and he grimaced at the absence of a proper mattress like a normal person. Shaking off drowsiness, he set out to explore the forest, soon discovering some herbs that looked promising. It was Maya herb, a common low-level plant, but with a touch of magic, it could be used to brew a respectable level 2 healing potion. Without hesitation, Late began gathering plentiful amounts of the flowers, aiming to build a substantial stockpile. Back at his makeshift workstation, he crushed the herbs while channeling mana into the mixture, combining the juice with water to start brewing. As the potion simmered, he watched the glowing liquid swirl. He knew that elite players in VLO use potions at level 11, healing 150 times more, but for now, any healing power was better than none. While he preferred a higher-level potion, being stranded in the middle of nowhere meant even a modest healing potion was a huge advantage. Suddenly, he noticed a small problem. He had no vials to store the precious potion he'd just created. Fortunately, as a master craftsman, crafting a container was straightforward. Using transformation magic, he molded a perfect vial. Carefully pouring the potion into the container, he ensured not a single drop was wasted, sealing it with a cork afterward. With 5 healing potions in his inventory, a wave of relief washed over him, knowing he now had the necessary support for more dangerous encounters. Deciding on a plan, Late set his sights on hunting demons nearby to gather as many magic stones as possible. Activating his search skill, a digital map expanded across the forest, revealing numerous potential targets. He wondered how many cores he could collect before sunset. The hunt started eagerly. He defeated boars, giant birds, and even aquatic monsters, collecting glowing stones from each. Upon checking his inventory, he found 10 magic stones and various valuable materials. Back at his shelter, he examined his haul and began strategizing the next crafting project. After some thought, he decided to make a flashbang, a vital tool for an assassin needing a quick escape or surprise opening. His first step was to drop a fragment of a magic stone onto his workbench, ready to forge something essential for his survival and stealth. With a decisive gesture, he commands the stone to shatter, transforming it into countless smaller fragments. Soon after, a faint trail of smoke rises from the debris, releasing the embedded magical energy. Our hero considers this a necessary sacrifice, despite it feeling like a waste, because crushing the stones is vital for crafting the bombs. He proceeds to repeat the process multiple times, breaking the stone into finer pieces until he accumulates enough material. The rough phase concludes with a small pile of shimmering dust. Now begins the technical stage. Using his light magic, he enchants each tiny fragment. When alone, these particles emit only a faint glow for a brief moment and prove nearly useless by themselves. Yet, their true power lies in the combined effect. Hundreds of activated pieces produce a blinding flash capable of stunning any foe. Once all are prepared, he concentrically compresses them into a single sphere, executing a precise command. And there it is, an accomplished flashbang. Not entirely confident with just one, he quickly crafts 2 additional units to ensure safety. Outside, time flows on, and the forest is bathed in sunlight. Lu stretches himself, feeling the exhaustion from this meticulous crafting. He reflects on how complex items demand effort and that manually assembling them was more exhausting than anticipated. Suddenly, an alert sharpens his senses. His magic detector flickers to life on the table, glowing and humming more intensely. He confirms that he isn't casting any spells, indicating the signal originates from an external source, be it an ally or a foe. Without hesitation, Lu gathers his gear, draws his bow, and rushes out of the cabin. Although he's uncertain who triggered the signal, he understands the importance of locating them immediately. He checks the detector once more, sensing the magical vibrations intensify in his grasp. Driven by urgency, he springs forward, leaping over roots and underbrush. As he runs, he swiftly retrieves a prepared magic stone from his item box. Simultaneously, he activates his stealth assist, cloaking himself in near invisibility among the shadows. Now concealed, he advances silently, moving like a ghost through the trees. Suddenly, something ahead catches his eye, and he slows, A scream pierces the silence, an urgent warning that the area is perilous. Climbing to a high branch, he gains a clearer view and quickly identifies the scene below. A girl pleads desperately, refusing to abandon her father and the knight gored in that cursed place. The sight is horrifying. A monstrous, colossal bear stands poised to slaughter the small group. The beast lets out a deafening roar that echoes through the forest. Panic spreads across the victims' faces, as if they have accepted their grim fate. Lead observes, drawing a stark conclusion. They are being hunted by an unnaturally powerful demon bear. In seconds, he analyzes the situation. One man is critically wounded, and the night gored can barely move. As the situation grew desperate, it became evident that the monster's claws were coated in a lethal venom, turning even a minor scratch into a death sentence. Recognizing that the creature would claim his life within moments, Lu abandoned his camouflage and loudly attracted the beast's attention. Without hesitation, he launched a flashbang into the thick of the chaos. A blinding burst of light engulfed everything, momentarily stunning both the monster and Sir Gord. The bear roared in distress as it tried to shield its eyes, but Lu pressed on, using his magical transformation to forge a solid block of pure aluminum. From this, he crafted a heavy arrow, warning the others to remain still, and shot it directly into the creature's face. The beast retaliated with a trunk as a club, yet Lu proved too swift, deftly dodging the attack. In an elegant vault, he leaped over the monster's claws, which slashed through the air with poison. Landing smoothly, he kept a close eye on the bear as it staggered. The arrow he crafted was infused with 3 different toxins. Deadnip affected the nervous system, while a wild mushroom caused hemorrhaging. Utilizing both, he ensured that if the demon was immune to one poison, the other would still do its deadly work. The 3rd toxin, extracted from a demon frog, functioned as an anesthetic, preventing the beast from feeling its approaching death. The combined effect brought the monster down suddenly, collapsing without even realizing the strike that had finished it. Sir Gord, still blinking from the flash, was stunned by how swiftly the enormous creature had fallen. As the dust settled, the assassin nonchalantly approached the group. Gord, eyes wide with disbelief, wondered aloud if he truly had killed the beast. Lu simply nodded in confirmation, his face unreadable. He checked the night sky and deduced that the monster's venom was likely slow-acting, but he realized that the wounded man's condition was critical. The deep gashes on his chest bled heavily, and if untreated, he would die long before the venom took effect. Lu understood that immediate medical intervention was necessary, or the man's life would be lost. Stepping forward, Gord blocked his path, reluctant to allow a stranger near the dying lord. Still, Lu warned him that without help, the old man would perish soon. Gord demanded to know if Lu knew who the injured man was. The boy replied that he recognized his importance and that was precisely why he aimed to save him. Gord hesitated, but seeing the lord's terrible condition, he finally relented, asking if Lu truly believed he could save him. Lu pulled out one of his vials and assured the knight he would try, requesting to be handed the potion. The large man, still suspicious, began to smell and lick the vial, leaving Lu momentarily stunned by his lack of trust. Noticing his apprehension, Lu challenged him to choose any of his vials, promising he would drink whatever the knight deemed safe, to prove its safety beyond doubt. Growing impatient with the guard's cautiousness, he casually breaks open a bottle before everyone and takes a hearty sip of his own healing potion. Afterward, he tilts the vial upside down, showing not a single drop remains. Desperate, the girl steps forward, loudly declaring she will handle it herself. She begins to pour the healing liquid into his mouth. Instantly, a radiant magical light erupts from the wounds, halting the bleeding and restoring the tissue so seamlessly that his skin appears untouched. Gord asks if that was a high-level potion, noting he has never seen a wound close so rapidly. Lu, puzzled by their amazement, surmises it might have been only a level 2 potion, which makes him consider that perhaps such remedies are uncommon in this area. Subsequently, he offers another vial to Gord. The hero assures him it is the same medicine as before and suggests treating the injured guard's shoulder as well, But Gord humbly declines, insisting he is only a guard and the resource should be reserved for others. Simply drinking it is enough, Gord says, as he still has plenty more supplies. Lu, growing impatient, warns that they are not yet safe due to the demon bear's deadly venom. Startled, the large man asks if the poison can also be cured, and Lu responds with a cautious, probably. He then inquires about the guard's condition, specifically how much paralysis has set in after the attack. Gord quickly tests his limbs with his fingers, feeling that their sensitivity diminishes but is still present for now. Lu reflects that the venom is paralyzing and, if not treated promptly, it could eventually reach the heart and prove fatal. He recommends transporting the injured man home since treatment cannot be administered effectively in the forest. Soon, they arrive at Li's cabin, which he opens to invite them inside. As he tends to the wounded man, Gord asks if Lu is a healer or doctor, but Lu explains he only crafts the necessary remedies himself. Intrigued by someone who isn't a specialist yet confidently produces such complex antidotes, the guard remains cautious. Lu offers to let Gord observe the process if he desires. After a moment of hesitation, Gord carefully surveys the room, then assures everyone the place is secure before finally relaxing and settling his lord. He then brings a basin of water and a towel for cleaning. The knight, pointing to the dark marks of poison creeping up his arm, asks whether the antidote will be ready in time. Lu affirms it will, quickly realizing that the venom must act slowly and gradually, since it has only reached the arm so far. He examines the herbs he gathered, noting that they are worn and of inferior quality, which disappoints him. The master craftsman believes he can still brew the potion if he handles it with extra care, carefully infusing and bruising the ingredients. Late understands that creating a remedy with subpar components demands significantly more effort and advanced techniques to ensure its healing properties are effective. Gord observes all of Late's actions intently, while Late muses that a simple enchantment could suffice if only he had access to premium materials. After several minutes, Late finally announces that the antidote is prepared. Gord volunteers to test it first, instructing everyone to wait. Without hesitation, the knight tips the bowl and drinks it down in one swift motion. Almost immediately, the magic takes effect, fading the dark venom marks on Gord's arm. His eyes widen as strength returns to his limbs, surprise evident on his face. Lumia, showing concern, asks, "Gord, what just happened?" Gord exclaims that the numbness vanished instantly. He inquires if that was truly an antidote, but Late interrupts him, urging him to stop hesitating and give it to the old man before he risks dying. Carefully, Lumia carries the bowl into the room where her father lies. As the old man drinks, a gentle glow spreads across his face, and both Lumia and Gord breathe a sigh of relief, seeing his expression brighten. At that moment, Late announces he's already cured both the poison and the wounds and requests they allow him to rest. He then gives Lumia another vial, urging her to give it to her father if he shows signs of distress or slow recovery. Now that the crisis seems averted, Late gets straight to the point, asking with crossed arms who they are and what they were doing in that forest. Lumia sees it as the right moment to reveal their identities. She begs to share everything once her father is awake, but Late insists they should disclose what they can now. Gord introduces himself as a royal guard from the kingdom of Missus. Lumia announces her name as Lumia Missus and reveals that her father is the 14th king of Missus. Late quickly deduces that something serious must have occurred, especially since it was unusual for a king to wander alone with only a single guard by his side. Gord requests that their identities be kept secret, prompting Late to formally introduce himself and ask if they are truly in such grave danger that assistance is necessary. The situation leaves them awkward, but Late suggests they continue their conversation over lunch. Outside, he pulls out a piece of stored frog meat, confirming that his item box truly preserves food without spoilage. Lumia approaches, curious about what he's holding. Late reassures her that it's not poisonous and that he has prepared antidotes just in case anything goes wrong. She samples the dish and is surprised by its flavor, defying expectations that she would dismiss humble, rural fare. Suddenly, Gord shouts a warning, warning the princess not to trust that man blindly, hinting at underlying concerns or dangers yet to be revealed. He insists that late hours are unnatural and that even he, a simple man, would refuse to eat meat from an unknown demon. The guard continues lecturing, emphasizing that an antidote should never be used as mere medicine for a stomach ache. Ignoring the scolding, the young man seasons the meat with his freshly crafted salt and takes a hearty bite from the skewer. Mmm, delicious, he murmurs, describing how juicy and flavorful the meat is. He concludes that his enjoyment was not merely born of hunger from yesterday. In fact, the meat truly was superb. Lu then offers a skewer to Lumia and Gord, who have been watching him with fascination and almost drooling. He inquires if the guard had brought anything to eat. After all, he shouldn't allow the princess to indulge in such a reckless meal. Embarrassed, the large man lowers his head and admits they left without supplies, muttering that circumstances had been complicated. Sensing the weight of the moment, Late chooses not to press the guard further and decides to wait until the king awakens to hear the full story. To lighten the mood, he offers the skewer to Gord, joking that the knight should go first and see if it's safe. Though still cautious, Gord, starved, swallows his pride and accepts the challenge. Without hesitation, he eagerly bites into the meat. His mind is flooded with pleasure, imagining himself on a sunny beach, being fed by a beautiful woman. Overcome with delight, Gord blushes as he admits the meat is delicious. He confesses that it's been a long time since he had tasted anything so exquisite. His enthusiasm excites the guard, who eagerly demands to know the creature's name so it can be imported to the capital. But Late quashes his excitement, saying simply that it's just a frog. Watching the scene unfold, Lumia smiles and explains that Gord simply cannot resist tasty food. She recounts how, at castle banquets, the knight would head directly to the food tables before greeting any guests. With the test complete, the princess asks if she may finally eat. Gord quickly agrees, vouching that the dish is perfectly safe. Her eyes shining with anticipation, Lumia reaches for her skewer but, remembering her royal manners, hesitates and awkwardly asks if Late might have a plate she could borrow. A princess's wish is a command, and the craftsman doesn't delay, activating his magic to conjure a full table setting with a plate, silverware, and a cup hovering before them. Gord taps the table, testing if it's real, and Lumia inquires where he obtained everything. Late simply replies that he crafted it himself. With proper etiquette now in place, the princess sits gracefully, cuts an elegant piece of meat, and takes a bite. The rustic, hearty flavor transports her, evoking the feeling of a simple commoner living freely in the wild. "It's truly delicious," she exclaims, eyes shining with delight. Gord nods in agreement, but suddenly pauses in mid-chew. When Late asks why, the guard explains that they have little food left and he cannot bring himself to eat it all. Ignoring this, the young man pulls out a bunch of skewers, cheerfully proclaiming that he has plenty more and can hunt again if needed. Upon learning he could indulge himself fully, the knight closed his eyes, deeply moved, and voiced a heartfelt thank you that resonated from his very soul. In that moment, Gord completely lost his composure, ravenously devouring the skewered meat as if starved. Inside the humble cabin, Gord admitted that such flavorful meat was a rare treat even within the castle walls. Lumia speculated that the animal might be the legendary and elusive Garaya frog, confidently asserting she was almost certain. Gord, however, interrupted, cautioning that preparing a Garaya frog in the forest was practically impossible. Curious, the boy, who had never heard of the creature, asked why it was so difficult to cook such a frog. Gord explained that centuries ago, a king had demanded this dish, prompting royal chefs to fillet at least 100 frogs to find one suitable for cooking. Lumia pressed further, eager to understand what made the process so challenging for those esteemed craftsmen. The knight clarified that the creature possessed roughly 10 delicate poison sacs, and even a single rupture would spoil the entire batch of meat. At this point, Lu produced a whole frog from his inventory, asking if that was what the Garaya frog looked like. Instantly, both Gord and Princess Lumia's eyes widened in shock. Desperate, Gord begged Lu to teach him how he had dissected such a creature with perfect precision. Suddenly, the cheerful atmosphere shattered with loud banging on the cabin door. Gord glanced at it and, puzzled, asked if any visitors were expected. Lu, understanding the danger, instinctively drew his dagger, knowing that nobody would knock in the middle of nowhere without cause. Sensing imminent threat, Gord quickly drew his sword and instructed the princess to step back. He asked who was outside, suspecting it might be Lazar, a fellow knight who had gone seeking help. To everyone's relief, a familiar voice responded, asking if it was Sir Gord, and then revealing himself as Lazar. Releasing a sigh of relief, Gord lowered his sword and told his comrade to enter since the door was unlocked. The knight stepped inside, visibly relieved to find the princess and fellow guards safe. Curious about his return, Lumia immediately inquired whether he had managed to find help. Lazar admitted that he had found no one but had stumbled upon the cabin while searching for aid. Gord offered reassurance, praising his effort, though the blonde knight looked rather ashamed of his failure. Switching topics, Lazar questioned why the princess had been brought to such a remote place. Spotting the peculiarities of the room, Gord pointed to Lu and explained that this was his humble home. The newcomer's eyes narrowed, questioning whether Lu was an ally, as he didn't recognize the name. Gord hushed him, revealing that Lu was merely a commoner, though he admitted the boy's behavior was anything but ordinary. Lazar grew agitated upon hearing that royalty was in a commoner's house. Gord attempted to calm him, explaining that much had transpired to lead to this moment. In defense of the craftsman, Lumia stepped forward, proudly stating that it was Sir Lu who had saved their lives. Lazar was caught completely off guard by the revelation. The princess confirmed that Late had defeated the demon alone and had even healed everyone's injuries. Gord added that the king had been poisoned but had already taken the antidote the boy possessed and was now resting in a back room. Hearing that the king was recovering from a deadly toxin, Lazar clenched his teeth in frustration. He questioned the situation skeptically, finding it suspicious. It seemed too convenient that Late had saved them all by chance and possessed the exact antidote needed for the poison. The blonde shouted accusations, claiming the boy couldn't be trusted, suggesting he was aiming to manipulate them, and insisting they leave the dangerous place immediately. Losing patience, Lazar muttered that such harsh words were unwarranted. However, Lumia's temper flared. She sharply rebuked the knight for insulting their savior, reminding him there was no safer sanctuary than this house. Lu, sensing the tension, tapped the wall twice to garner everyone's attention. He then opened the window and questioned if he would truly allow his victims to roam free in a trapless place if he intended to use them for some ulterior purpose. Lazar quickly retorted, pointing a finger, saying he hadn't bound the princess because Sir Gord was present to prevent him. At that moment, Lee's demeanor changed entirely. His voice turned stern as he warned that they stood no chance against him and that he could kill all four together if he wished. Returning to his relaxed stance, he remarked that he hadn't done so because he had no intention of harming them. Internally, the craftsman analyzed Lee's weaknesses, noticing his movements were sloppy enough that he could eliminate him instantly without much effort. He concluded that Gord was probably the strongest among them, but even he wouldn't last 10 seconds against Lee's current arsenal. Fuming from being underestimated, Lazar growled and asked if the commoner was insulting the knights. Shrugging indifferently, the boy replied that it wasn't an insult but the stark truth. That broke the tension for Lazar, who drew his sword with anger. Before acting rashly, Lumia intervened, stepping between them and demanding Lazar cease disrespecting the man who had saved them. Lazar attempted to plead for forgiveness, but Lumia cut him off with an order. Sighing, she called Gord's name, and the big man responded immediately. In a flash, he placed his sword at Lazar's throat. Lumia's voice echoed with authority, warning that if Lazar disobeyed again, Gord would be forced to execute him for treason. Through the reflection in his eye, Lazar saw the princess's dark, unwavering stare. Terrified, he dropped to his knees, bowing his head and begging for mercy and forgiveness from her. Watching the scene unfold, the craftsman reflected that royalty indeed was formidable. He admitted that he had treated the princess like a regular person until now, but witnessing her seriousness made him realize what she was truly capable of. Laser rose to his feet, still trembling, and it quickly became clear that while Lumia had identified the core issue earlier, the internal conflict was far from resolved. The skilled craftsman observed the fury etched into his face and swiftly deduced that Laser had yet to accept the insult, determined to settle the matter once and for all. Approaching the princess, Lu suggested that it might be simpler to make the blonde understand through a physical confrontation, surprising everyone by asking permission to battle Laser. Together, they stepped outside the cabin. Armed solely with a small dagger, Lu reassured her that it would be a mere mock fight and that no one would be harmed. But Laser was not joking around. With a pointed blade, he vowed to crush Li's arrogance once and for all. Despite his words, he was fully aware that facing a trained knight in close combat put him at an immense disadvantage. Yet, there was no rule preventing him from fighting dirty. Summoning his magic artifacts, he smirked amidst a levitating arsenal, prepared to fight as cowardly as possible. Their reflections shimmered in the blades as he readied himself for the assault. Just moments before the clash, he had raised his hand, awkwardly asking if he could fight Laser. Without hesitation, Laser grabbed a piece of wood, reassuring her that no one would be killed, that it was merely a mock battle meant to defuse tensions. In that instant, he activated his transformation magic, and a bright glow enveloped the wooden block, reshaping and refining the raw material in seconds. Now wielding a makeshift sword, he fixed her with his usual unimpressed stare, claiming that through combat, the blonde knight would finally grasp his true intentions. He understood well that murdering the princess's guard would only lead to trouble. Hence, settling everything with a friendly duel was the wisest course. Lumia, meanwhile, was breaking out in a cold sweat, anxiously asking if he was sure this was the best option. She felt guilty, recognizing that training knights was a royal duty she should not shift onto an outsider. But for Laser, the matter was straightforward. He explained that resolving the misunderstanding once and for all would simplify his life significantly. She warned him that while he lacked the mind of a true knight, his strength and skill were undeniable. Behind them, Gord nodded in agreement, warning that even among the elite guard, the blonde ranked among the top 3 and urging Lu not to underestimate him. With a calm, expressionless face, the craftsman shrugged, confidently asserting everything would turn out fine. As they assumed their positions, Laser shot him a piercing look, confirming whether the fight truly had no rules. With steady composure, Lu affirmed that Laser could use any weapon or tactic desired, even to the point of intending to kill if he wished. To prove he wasn't bluffing, the boy revealed a vial from his bag, assuring everyone that there was no danger, since they possessed extra medicine. The glowing glass in the commoner's hand caught the knight's attention, prompting him to narrow his eyes. Gordon and Lesser were stunned. They couldn't believe a simple commoner held what they recognized as a rare, level 1 potion. Still perplexed, the large man remarked to his companion that he had initially thought the same upon seeing the boy. He explained that the medicines used in the past would be worth enough for any commoner to retire comfortably, leading him to doubt that the boy was an ordinary person. Based on the astonishing healing effects, Gord would not be surprised if he were a royal physician from another land, which further piqued Lazar's curiosity. While Lazar deduced that no nation would let a healer with such potions escape, he slowly placed the vial back into his inventory. Observing the fuss over such a seemingly simple item, the boy wondered if potions were truly so valuable. He surmised that, in this place, those who craft potions are called doctors. Unlike VLO, where they were primarily alchemists, the practical difference was minimal. What truly surprised him was that these potion makers regarded level 1 practitioners as rare, since in the game system, anyone with alchemy skills at level 10 could produce such potions with ease. To reach that level, players would typically buy ingredients in bulk and grind 0-level potions for 3 consecutive nights, an ordinary routine for beginners. The large man stroked his chin thoughtfully, noting that even a highly respected healer would struggle to carry multiple level 1 potions. This observation led him to suspect that the boy, living so isolated, was likely a fugitive. The idea caused the two of them to craft an elaborate backstory about his life. Late listened silently, his expression unreadable. But he considered that the reputation of a fugitive doctor was preferable to potentially revealing the truth. To conclude the conversation, he assumed a combat stance, drawing his dagger and calling on the knight to begin the fight. Lazar also raised his sword, questioning how Late expected him to trust someone who refused to disclose his past. In response, the boy met their gazes with a bored expression, stating that this very lack of trust was the reason they were about to clash. To prevent the situation from escalating, Gord stepped into the center and announced he would serve as the judge for their duel, receiving a quick nod of approval from Lazar. The three took their positions in the yard. The big man raised his hand, clenched his fist, then relaxed his arm before shouting loudly for the contest to commence. Lazar moved first. The boy simply stared him down, calmly slipping his hand inside his coat. In a split second, he unleashed a hidden trick, activating a small explosive that triggered a blinding flash of magic in his opponent's face. Disoriented and stinging from the burst, Lazar lowered his head. Yet, an assassin shows no mercy for an opening. Seizing the opportunity while Lazar was blinded, the boy leapt into the air, closing the distance with the speed of lightning, dagger at the ready. Without even witnessing the full extent of Lazar's flurry of strikes, our young assassin sensed enough to warn him that underhanded tricks would not lead to victory. A self-satisfied smirk crept across Lee's face in response. In an instant, the knight launched a fierce counterattack, swinging his sword with such incredible force that our protagonist was forced to retreat. Observing Lazar's stance, Leet understood that, despite his youth, Lazar had already developed the ability to sense the presence of an opponent, even when blind. For an assassin, defeating him would be effortless. Simply erase his awareness, slip behind him unnoticed, and drive a blade through his neck. Yet, the purpose of this mock battle wasn't merely victory. It was humiliation, a demonstration of the abyssal skill gap between them. Seeing Lazar blindly trust his swordsmanship, our hero decided to shatter that confidence. He infused his arm with immense strength and magic, enchantments that amplified his brute force, and charged at Lazar like a panzer. The collision was devastating. Lazar tried to parry with his sword, but the sheer weight of the attack pushed him backward. The two clashed furiously, each strike creating shockwaves that echoed through the air. Finally, the knight begrudgingly acknowledged that the commoner was quite skilled. Leet, reading his opponent's expression, smirked arrogantly and warned that he could do even better. Amidst the chaos of their weapons clashing, Leet activated transformation magic to sharpen his blade, snapping Lazar's wooden sword in half in the process. Off balance, Lazar looked up, only to be met with an appalling sight. A terrifying demonic aura radiating from Lu. The overwhelming pressure overwhelmed Lazar, filling him with primal fear, leaving him utterly defenseless. At that moment, the sword stopped mere inches from his face. The match was over. Gord declared the fight finished. Lazar's eyes widened in shock, realizing his life had hung entirely in the hands of this commoner. Clutching the remnants of his sword, he wondered whether it had all been an illusion. Our hero then recalled the enchanted blade, dismissing it into his inventory. Enchantments, he reflected, were tiring but perfect for quick duels. Since Lazar was not an elite fighter, the effort only left him sore the next day. Meanwhile, Lazar knelt on the ground, trembling. Lu explained that special techniques could dismantle swords, and that swordsmanship wasn't his true strength. In his mind, however, Lu quietly admitted it was all a lie. He had used transformation magic because his fencing skills were rudimentary at best. Gord acknowledged Lazar's raw strength, though his technique appeared average. Then, with innocent curiosity, Lu asked whether Lazar's sword was actually good. To our hero, the weapon felt quite mediocre during the battle, nothing like the top-tier items he had seen in the game. The knight explained it was forged by a renowned blacksmith and had been awarded as a promotional prize. Leet felt a pang of guilt for destroying such a valued item. Attempting to mend his mistake, the young man steps forward and claims that the repair is straightforward. However, as he reaches out to touch the remnants of the blade, Lazar's fury erupts, and he screams for the fool not to handle it with his ordinary hands. Nonetheless, the inattentive youth grabs the blade with bare skin and cuts himself. Bleeding, he snarls that the late will never be worthy. At that moment, Lumi intervenes, bringing the chaotic scene to a halt. She gazes at the guard with a cold expression and questions whether he is not ashamed to behave so dishonorably after suffering a defeat. She remarks that insulting his savior and acting like a sore loser brings disgrace to any member of the royal guard. Without delay, Lumia bows before the late and sincerely apologizes for her subordinate's lack of manners. Gord panics, pleading with Her Highness to lift her head and remember her social rank before doing anything rash. Ignoring his desperation, she coldly asks what punishment would be fitting for a man behaving in such a manner. The large man gulps and begins citing the code, emphasizing that Lazar's actions tarnish the guard's honor and that he disobeyed direct orders. Consequently, he declares that the penalty for such dishonor must be death. From a distance, our observer notes that despite Lumia being the crown princess, she remains just a 15-year-old girl. He observes her hand trembling and infers that she doesn't truly want to execute someone she has known for a long time. Gord clarifies that the code is absolute. Defiling the guard's honor warrants execution, in contrast to the standard discipline of dismissal elsewhere. Steadfastly, Lumia affirms that, by law, there is no alternative but to carry out an immediate execution. Devastated, Laser lowers his head and accepts his harsh fate. At that crucial moment, the young man decides to intervene. He raises his voice, urging everyone to pause. He reflects that the protocols of this world are exceedingly bizarre, where a single misstatement can cost a life. He considers that if the king awakens to find one of his guards dead, diplomatic negotiations could be compromised. Drawing from his experience as a player, he concludes that saving Laser's life would serve his own future better, even without obligation. This marks a new phase of the journey. He questions whether it is truly necessary to kill the knight over such a trivial matter. Gord responds with a heavy expression, explaining that the laws of the royal guard leave no room for interpretation. The hero counters, arguing that since he is the true victim, he would be content to overlook the incident entirely. However, Gord insists that the matter runs deeper, that Lazar's disrespect damages the honor of the institution, transcending a personal insult. Finally, Gord raises his hand and asserts loudly that anyone who damages the guard's reputation also insults the royal family itself, which is why the code is so strict. After listening to the lecture, the young man concludes that ultimately, the matter boils down to honor and proper protocol. Yet, Leet refuses to give in and begins devising a way out. He then suggests that, since only he and Lumia witnessed what transpired, no one else would be aware if everyone simply kept quiet. Promising not to reveal anything, Leet asks the princess if she agrees, and she confirms she will keep the secret. At that moment, the large man lets out a long breath and offers an alternative solution. He proposes that he and Leet will be responsible for Lazar's safety moving forward. Gord explains that there is a special clause allowing postponement of executions if the prisoner can be of use in a mission. Leet immediately understands that this means the execution would be indefinitely suspended, or at least until the task was completed. For this plan to succeed, both the supervisor and the prisoner must accept the terms, which Leet does without hesitation. Gord then takes on the role of overseeing Lazar's fate, warning that he will decide the details of the mission later. Seeing that he has been granted a second chance, the boy bows deeply in gratitude, though Gord's warning is clear. If he slips up again, he is doomed. He must do everything to restore his lost honor. The elder even adds that if Leet changes his mind, he could request Lazar's death at any moment. As they walk away, Leet gazes at the night sky, while Lazar appears bitter about having his destiny entrusted to someone he despises deeply. Leet ponders how matters reached this point, considering his initial intent was merely to prove who was stronger in a duel. Inside the cabin, he sets a bucket of water on the table to assist with caring for the king. Outside, Lazar and Gord gather firewood. Moving closer to Lumia's father, Leet tests the mattress firmness by asking her if she thought it was too hard for the king. He explains that the current mattress was only a temporary fix because he lacked the proper materials when he built the cabin alone. Lumia disagrees, saying to her, "Everything in the house seemed to be of the finest quality." Leet then reveals he has obtained some premium materials and plans to craft a much better bed. He recalls forcing Lazar to hand over a fragment of a broken sword as punishment. Lumia inquires if he would use the metal from the sword to build some kind of support, but Leet responds that the fragment's purpose would be incorporated into the mattress. She imagines a bed made of thorns, which shocks her. She comments that he could do that if he had royal approval, but Leet quickly dismisses her idea, explaining his goal is to create a normal bed. He remarks that Lumia's imagination is surprisingly dangerous for her age. Then, using his transformation magic, he conjures several metal springs. As he assembles the structure, he admits he would have to rely on his memory to complete the task. Recognizing that the sword fragment alone wouldn't suffice, Leet decides to incorporate some earlier collected iron sand into the process. Through the window, Laser helplessly watches his treasured sword melting away. Tears fill his eyes as he mourns the loss of his beloved weapon, now reduced to metal goo. It's a poignant moment of sorrow and regret. Meanwhile, the craftsman sets about preparing the padding. He carefully separates layers of felt, cotton, and fabric to ensure the king's comfort is maximized. With swift, precise motions, he arranges these materials over a spring-based core, sculpting the mattress through a skill so refined it feels almost magical. Using his unique technique, he expertly sews the edges, joining all layers into a durable, seamless finish. Each stitch is deliberate, creating a bed that is both resilient and luxurious. Once the final adjustments are complete, the new sleeping surface is ready to be tested. Lumia questions aloud whether this entire process was accomplished solely with a sword, but Lu dismisses the remark, inviting her to try the mattress herself. Without hesitation, Lumia sits down, only to stumble and fall backward onto the soft surface. The mattress instantly rebounds, causing her to spring up in surprise. Her expression shifts into awe. She has never experienced anything so incredibly soft and comforting. Leaning back, she exclaims, "It's extraordinary." Admitting that even the beds in the royal castle weren't as plush, the princess then praises the craftsman, marveling at his genius in turning swords into both medicine and beds. Lu jokes quietly about the money he could make selling such creations, hinting at the potential market. Lumia remains seated, savoring the gentle sway of the springs and the soothing sensation of relaxation. Lu then announces his plan to replace every mattress in the house, a statement that surprises Lumia with his dedication to comfort. As soon as the princess hears this, she races back to the new bed, eager to indulge. With a joyful cry of "Yay!" she leaps onto it with full force. She begins rolling side to side, stretching out and reveling in the paradise she's found in this room. At that moment, Lu opens the door and catches her in the act. Slightly embarrassed, Lumia has no time to react before Lu hurls a pillow straight at her face. She catches it, immediately noticing how fluffy and inviting it feels. In her playful mood, the princess flops onto the pillow again, rolling and hugging it tightly as her royal composure melts away. Meanwhile, Lu continues constructing more objects, soon placing a ladder behind the room. Summoning her courage, Lumia then approaches him with a request. She reveals she has a very special favor to ask of her master craftsman. He quickly inquires whether her request is difficult or complicated, but she surprises him by pleading to take the new bed to the palace, offering to pay any price he demands. Lu responds that he can produce as many beds as she wishes, provided he has the necessary materials. The princess is ecstatic, clutching the pillow with all her might and expressing her gratitude profusely. As she celebrates, Lu reflects that his little carpentry project has been a complete success. Meanwhile, Laser, distressed over his melted sword, receives a stern admonition from Gord to get back to work. The next day, the cabin is filled with a scream from Lumia, signaling another adventure or surprise just ahead. As her father finally opened his eyes, King Leonis gazed at Leet standing near the door. He pressed his hand to his chest, visibly confused, and questioned whether he was truly still alive. The king vividly remembered the mortal blow inflicted by the demon bear and wondered if it had all been just a nightmare. Lumia clarified that he was not dreaming and introduced Leet as the doctor responsible for saving him using a level 1 potion. With his signature bored expression, Leet simply introduced himself as a passing doctor. The king regarded him with a penetrating look and expressed heartfelt gratitude for his life being spared. Yet, Leonis fixated on Leet and asked about his true identity. Leet wondered if the question stemmed from his informal manner, but Leonis chuckled, stating he was indifferent to manners. The king explained he had encountered many rude adventurers. Some found their lack of etiquette bothersome, but he personally did not mind. Glancing around the room, Leonis admitted his curiosity was genuine. He pointed toward the magic lamp, noting that such perfect illumination was typically reserved for palaces, something an ordinary doctor wouldn't possess. Leet examined his lamp and dismissed it modestly as a very fine device. The king touched the scars on his chest, reflecting that wounds as severe as his could not have been healed by a simple level 1 potion. He expressed certainty that the medicine administered to him was of a much higher grade than claimed. Without hesitation, Leet produced a small vial and confirmed that the potion used was indeed level 2. The king, alarmed, asked where he had obtained such a rare remedy. Leet calmly responded that he had crafted it himself. The king covered his face, struggling to process that a young man secluded in the forest could create such an advanced potion alone. Suddenly, Leonis burst into laughter. Returning to his composure, he declared that Leet would need to demonstrate his true abilities, as it would be a historic achievement. Leet nodded slightly, accepting the challenge without hesitation, but he imposed one condition. He wanted to know the real reason someone of royal blood was lost in such a perilous forest. Surprised by the audacity, Leonis asked if the boy was attempting to negotiate with a king as if they were equals. Shortly after, the king grinned broadly and agreed to the deal, promising to reveal everything about his situation if Leet could craft the level 2 potion before his eyes. Lumia looked at her father, uncertain if he was truly confident in the boy's skills. The king explained that if Leet was genuine, he would become an invaluable ally. Without delay, Leet placed a pile of herbs on the table and warned he would use simple materials to create the miracle medicine the king doubted so deeply. Leonis found the use of rare herbs unusual, but Leet assured him they were merely common weeds and nothing extraordinary. The skilled artisan carefully crushes the plants with precise movements, demonstrating mastery that earns the king's admiration. Recognizing the craftsmanship, the king praises his talent, to which the boy responds that true professionalism demands nothing less than perfection. Next, he channels the concentrated extract into a small vessel, preparing for the next step. Once everything is in place, Leet sets the cauldron over the fire, cautioning that now it must be brought to a boil to activate the potion's magical qualities. The mixture turns a vivid red as it heats, and Leet explains that this glowing hue is the hallmark of an authentic level 2 enchantment. After completing this stage, he begins filling small vials meticulously, ensuring every precious drop is preserved. With a sense of accomplishment, Leet declares the potion ready, presenting his finished work to the assembled group. Leonis inquires about how they will test its power, but suddenly, he slices his own hand with a dagger, causing Lumia and Gord to despair instantly. The king then pours the potion over the deep wound, and within moments, the cut seals seamlessly, leaving not a single scar. Impressed by the instant healing, Leonis marvels at the medicine's extraordinary property, while Leet questions whether it's normal for a king to cut himself out of mere curiosity. The old man justifies his action, saying he lacked anyone else to perform the test. Now seated at the table, the king prepares to fulfill his part of their agreement, but insists on absolute secrecy about what he is about to share. Taking a deep breath, Leonis confesses that they fled because they were victims of a brutal assassination attempt. The attack was carried out by Saddax, an infiltrated mage who used teleportation magic to trap them. The boy asks if they were directly thrown in front of a monster, and the king confirms this was exactly the case. Leonis explains that despite being a skilled fighter, He was taken by surprise and couldn't react in time, resulting in a severe injury. Hearing this, Leet mutters that everything is beginning to fall into place. Teleportation spells, while not causing direct damage, can be deadly when used to deposit victims in trap-laden zones infested with powerful enemies. Sensing the weight of their failure, Gord kneels, remorseful and asking for forgiveness for not being able to protect his king. King Leonis, with gentle kindness, touches the knight's face and urges him to lift his head, saying that no one could have defended him under those circumstances. Gord thanks him humbly but admits with shame that he did not kill the beast himself. The king, puzzled, wonders who could have defeated such a monster if not his most trusted guard. He quickly deduces that Lazor was likely responsible, yet Lumia and Gord deny this vehemently. Then Gord points to Leet and declares it was the alchemist who ended the creature's life. The king is startled, asking, "Wasn't he just a healer?" Leet then pulls a small vial from his pocket, explaining that he did indeed kill the beast, but used poison to make the task easier. The king inquires whether he himself was responsible for a particular deed, to which Lu responds that he only refined an already toxic ingredient, demonstrating his skill in handling deadly substances. Seizing the moment, Gord adds that, besides being a healer, Lu is also a formidable fighter who defeated Laser in a mock combat. Leonis asks if Lu managed to best Lazar, and the tall man confirms, explaining that though Laser is notoriously temperamental, his swordsmanship is top tier, yet Lu still emerged victorious. The king is utterly stunned when he learns that Lu employed an unusual technique to break the knight's prized sword as if it were fragile glass. The elder, overwhelmed, admits it's difficult to fully grasp. Leonis discards formalities and turns to Lu, asking if he would be willing to assist them. With his characteristic boredom, Lu simply stares and questions what kind of help they require. The king then states his primary aim, to return swiftly to the safety of his castle. He believes that though the dark forest is perilous, traveling with a skilled healer like Lu would ensure their safety. Lu, crossing his arms, remarks that the king speaks as if all problems would vanish the moment they arrive. The king immediately demands clarification, and Lu, straightforward as ever, challenges whether Leonis believes the man who once sent him to his death would greet him warmly at the castle. Leonis reflects that Sadok, a traitor, should already have been executed, and it's only a matter of time before the populace exposes him. Lu then raises a pointed question. Why was someone so obviously suspicious appointed as Prince Kasix's guard? This realization finally sinks in for the group, and the king faces a deep internal conflict, questioning how he could have been so blind. Lu points out that Sadok's peculiar death and rumors of poison in his food had already cast suspicion on him before these events. The king agrees, recalling that even the most persistent ministers remained silent during the scandal. Leonis notes that Sadok was despised for his atrocities, making the lack of reaction from others all the more suspicious and dangerous. An ominous heaviness fills the air as something sinister seems imminent. Suddenly, ghostly skeletal hands burst through reality itself, reaching toward the group with terrible menace. The creature, a specter of death, bellows that no one must dare oppose it. Hovering ominously above the king and his companions, the undead figure appears to regard them as mere puppets in its deadly game. Lu perceives that it's a form of mind control, a complex magic that typically shatters once the victim notices contradictions within their own memories. The creature lunges again, but Leet responds effortlessly, sarcastically questioning if the mage has any other cheap tricks hidden up his sleeve. In one swift move, he reveals his defensive item, labeled as Mouse Number 1, and warns the enemy never to underestimate him again. A blinding flash erupts, enveloping the room as a powerful countermagic strikes the creature, obliterating its skeletal projection in seconds. As the smoke begins to clear, Lu boldly tells the traitor to return only when he's 1,000 times stronger, dismissing that level of magic as mere child's play. In a distant, shadowy corridor, several pendants holding the control spell start to fracture and fall apart. Sadex notices his magic has been broken and begins to wonder if someone managed to free King Linus from that seemingly hopeless situation. Yet, the renegade mage remains unfazed, vowing that nothing can stop the will of the mighty god Meserizer. He mutters to Leonis to enjoy his pain and despair, hinting at darker plans. Suddenly, a malignant symbol burns brightly in the sky above the castle, casting an ominous glow. After Leonis departs, all the castle inhabitants are left as mere puppets, their minds manipulated by the traitor's spell. Back at the cabin, Leonis struggles to gather his thoughts, haunted by the revelation that, despite the brutalities inflicted, everyone within the castle seemed to support Sadex's treachery. He ponders whether they conspired to oust him from his own realm. Without hesitation, Leet questions whether the king's cruelty drove people to despise him, making them eager to see him dethroned. The old king counters that he always prioritized his people's welfare, even reducing the royal budget by half upon ascending the throne. Leet then asks if the citizens truly saw him as a good ruler. Gord steps forward, affirming that the king's popularity is extraordinary. Just ask anyone on the streets, and they would confirm it. Reflecting on everything, the hero concludes that Sadex likely cast a brainwashing spell, turning all the castle's inhabitants against the king. Leonis is stunned to hear about this kind of magic, capable of utterly dominating free will. Leet recalls that such magic existed in VLOO, a game setting, though it was limited to corrupted bosses or villains to prevent players from wreaking havoc. Lumia quickly asks if that's why no one challenged Sadex's atrocities. Leet confirms this was the case. The king then questions why Sadex bothered to exile him if he could have simply mind-controlled him as well. Leet explains that royalty and high-level adventurers have a natural resistance to such magic, often losing their minds entirely when affected. Realization dawns on Leonis that if Sadex employed mind control, the entire kingdom of Miasis might already be under his influence. Desperation grips him as he admits he has no idea how to reverse such a devastating enchantment. At this point, the hero suggests there is a straightforward solution to end this crisis, something remarkably simple. The king firmly asserts that eliminating Sodex is the only way to break the mind control, claiming that all would instantly return to normal afterward. The young boy is taken aback by the king's casual suggestion of assassination, as if it were an obvious solution. The king raises his hand to his forehead, attempting to explain that such an act is far more complicated than the boy perceives, especially since he's merely a doctor. Leet counters swiftly, stating, "If there's no easy way, they'll do it the hard way." He then remarks that the palace's security is so strict that infiltrating unnoticed would be nearly impossible. Shrugging, he adds that any security systems which allow a manipulative mage to slip inside are probably flawed. Leonis, losing patience, insists that storming the castle to kill a traitor would require a professional assassin, something he believed impossible. Unbeknownst to him, Leet is exactly that. The boy suddenly offers that he might have someone suited for the task. Lu explains that, as a healer capable of producing level 2 potions, he maintains contacts across various sectors. Still, Leonis doubts any ordinary assassin could bypass the fortress's defenses. Lu asks whether the castle employs epic-level barriers such as the Magic Destroyer, the Unbreakable, or even a Space Rift. Leet observes that if such VLO-level protections guarded the castle, an invasion would indeed be a nightmare. Leonis reveals, however, that those defenses are mere myths, and the walls are protected by what is known as the Unshakable Barrier. Upon hearing the name, Leet checks his power ranking and quickly realizes this barrier ranks among the weaker ones, considered below average, in fact. Silently disappointed but composed, he inquires about other potential weak points, such as the windows. The king explains that the windows are unprotected because no spell from outside could penetrate them. Leet quickly concludes that it's been quite some time since he accepted an assassination job as simple and absurd as this one. He states, "The task is entirely feasible, if the reward is right." This remark visibly irritates King Leonis, who responds, "I wouldn't call someone an assassin if they couldn't at least do that." Leonis admits that if a true professional of such caliber existed, he would already be asking for help to save his kingdom. Leet assures him that the mission will be completed, and payment will only be made upon success. To emphasize his confidence, he risks his own life by declaring that if the assassin fails, he will take his own life. Confronted with such unwavering resolve, Leonis agrees to pay any price and pleads with Leet to connect him with this legendary assassin. Leet nods and activates a magical artifact, which begins to glow in his hand. The device initiates a simulated communication with the assassin, who, in fact, is Leet himself. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the boy triggers his arsenal, summons his magic gear, and prepares for the upcoming infiltration, as magical mechanisms whirl madly around his workstation. "Allow me to reintroduce myself," he says, revealing himself as the assassin. As Gord and Leonis gaze at his array of deadly weapons, the king inquires if he's serious. Suddenly, two small mechanical mice appear, serving tea in an extraordinarily unusual manner. While sipping calmly, the visitor declares that he is, indeed, the assassin he claimed to be, and suggests they begin discussing payment immediately. Lu calmly explicates that only highly skilled professionals can handle such dirty work, often relying on the simplest, most effective method, using poison to eliminate targets. Leonis attempts to protest, mentioning that the palace has safeguards against toxic substances. In response, Lu unveils his secret weapon, an undetectable poison that passes standard tests, yet becomes lethal upon contact with the victim's internal fluids. Lumia, intrigued, asks how he would deliver such a toxin. Lu explains that he could develop a poison easily absorbed by crops. He further proposes hiding a flying device within the clouds, capable of dispersing poison over fields, leaving no trace of its origin. The king doubts the feasibility of such flying devices, claiming they are extremely difficult to produce. Without hesitation, Lu reaches out and activates a mechanical object on the table. Enchanting it, he transforms a small robot mouse into a formidable artillery turret. The device fires a projectile at superhuman speed, shattering a teacup with an explosion, proof that his creations are far from mere toys. Lifting his cup after the demonstration, Lu warns that he alone controls the method of eliminating the target. Surprising his audience with raw firepower is his usual tactic for gaining advantage. With full command of the situation, he produces a coin and declares that it is time to discuss a fair price for Sadax's assassination. At that, his other robots move to the center of the table, and a projection appears displaying the count of those present. Leonis, glancing at a cracked fragment of his cup, admits he'd pay any price to ensure Sadax's downfall, but asks what is demanded in return. Lu does not hesitate. He requests land for a workshop, total secrecy about his identity, and a cooperation agreement with the kingdom. The king agrees to the land immediately but is curious about the meaning of secrecy and the details of this partnership. Lu explains that revealing himself as an assassin would be problematic, which is why he wishes to keep his craftsman status strictly confidential. The king presses further, seeking clarification on the cooperation terms. Lu clarifies he desires a relationship based on equality, where both sides can request help when needed, but also reserve the right to refuse any request. Leonis soon understood that treating a kingdom as an equal carried a tremendous cost. Yet, he knew there was no alternative if he wished to save his people. With a subtle smirk, Leet watched the king accept the terms, sealing the agreement with a firm handshake. The decision was now official. Their target was the mage Sadax. In exchange, Leet would have his workshop and Massey's partnership secured by contract. Lumia inquired about the deadline, and Leet explained that poisoning the farm would take months, whereas a direct assault could be completed much faster. The king emphasized that failure was not an option and favored the method that assured absolute success. Leet attentively listened to the old man's request, then asked if he truly trusted himself to handle such a perilous task. The boy responded that the success of the infiltration depended entirely on the castle's defenses and spells Sodox usually employed. Immediately, one of his mechanical mice handed Leonis a piece of chalk. The king warned that his knowledge relied on an outdated system and that many things might have changed, but Leet assured him he would investigate the crucial details himself. Leonis requested secrecy, and Leet promised that no information would leak from his side. As hours passed, the atmosphere inside the cabin grew tense with planning sessions and even mechanized baths crafted by Leet. Night fell, and each rested as best they could while Laser returned from his morning patrol, bringing new intelligence. Before the map, they examined the escape routes and attack plans. With the dawn, Princess Lumia awoke feeling renewed and prepared for what would be a pivotal day for the kingdom. In the main chamber, the men discussed final details, greeting her collectively upon her arrival. Over coffee, the king asked once more if Leet genuinely believed he could face such a challenge. Leet responded confidently that the plan was simple, leaving Leonis nearly choking at the boy's boldness. While observing the food Gord had prepared, Leet confirmed that if the defenses matched the descriptions, the mission would be straightforward. Leonis sighed, admitting he lacked experience in assassination tactics, and entrusted all strategic decisions to Leet. When asked about the distance to the capital, Gord affirmed it would require approximately 3 hours from Lenaleria. Reflecting on this, Leet concluded he could eliminate the mage in just a single day if he possessed the proper materials. He began listing his requirements: 500 magic stones, 30 kilos of iron, and 10 kilos of copper for forging his gear. Gord suggested the Klen Corporation in Lenaleria as a supplier, but then started rummaging through his robes for gold. He realized, with some frustration, that in his haste to teleport, he had left himself with not a penny to offer Leet, much to the boy's disappointment. As the group looks around, our young protagonist quickly notices that everyone is financially struggling. He suggests charging the cost to a tab, but Gord warns that such an action would immediately draw the attention of the knights loyal to the traitor. Discovering the king's whereabouts now would spell disaster, and Leg agrees that maintaining secrecy is paramount. They understand they must acquire the metal supplies covertly, while the magic stones will be gathered through hunting monsters, the traditional raw method. King Linus reflects that obtaining large quantities of iron and copper without involving the official guard would be both costly and perilous. Our young hero soon realizes that copper, in this world, is far rarer than he initially thought. He considers that the technological level here makes refining iron a complex task, yet these metals are essential for crafting magic items. With no alternatives, Leet proposes selling something valuable, a level 2 potion he pulls from his inventory. The king dismisses this idea, but the craftsman finds it odd, assuming the king is concerned about profit since such potions usually fetch 100 times their manufacturing cost. Our protagonist then suggests offering a more valuable item: level 4 potions, assuming they have enough time to craft them. Hearing this, everyone reacts with awe. The king warns that creating such powerful potions could attract unwanted attention to their hiding place. Leet, with a blank expression, questions whether the item truly warrants such concern. Linus explains that level 2 potions are exclusive to royalty, produced once every 3 years, and considered rare national treasures. Recognizing that a single potion every 3 years is nearly insignificant, our hero shifts his approach. He decides to produce level 0 potions instead. Using his transformation magic, he prepares a cauldron for mixing, then begins pouring pure water directly into his valuable level 2 potions, diluting them. The entire group watches in shock, perceiving this as a blatant waste of legendary resources. The boy explains that diluting the potion lowers its potency, transforming it into a basic, more common version. Linus asks if he understands what he's doing, and Leet confirms he's simply creating lower-level items. The king erupts in frustration, shouting that he's turning a royal treasure into something anyone can buy cheaply. Leet remains calm, assuring him he can craft level 2 potions whenever needed. He questions whether reclaiming their country ranks higher than hoarding a handful of mystical vials. Linus admits he's never seen anyone treat legendary items so casually, but Leet warns that he'll soon get used to it. The first batch of level 0 potions is then completed, bottled, and ready for the black market. Leet asks Gord if he can sell these potions without attracting trouble, and the larger man promises to handle everything. As they store the vials, our hero wonders why they must wait until night to make the sale. Gord explains that he must be cautious, as venturing outside now could expose him to soldiers from other night patrols who would easily recognize him. Maintaining his usual composure, he suggests that a simple solution exists, using one of his magical artifacts. He produces a small enchanted object and asks the guard to hold it. This item is a mask of illusion created specifically to conceal the wearer's identity. As Gord's hand touches the artifact, a swirl of magic energy pulses around his sturdy frame. A peculiar tingling sensation washes over him, and in an instant, he shifts into an unrecognizable, short, and plump merchant. He nervously feels his face and bearded visage, astonished at the transformation. Presenting a mirror to the guard, he confirms the disguise is flawless and completely unidentifiable. Lu then inquires if he should accompany them, since carrying a hefty bundle of 500 magic stones alone would be burdensome for the new shape. However, he opts instead for Lezer to go in his stead. Before leaving, a blonde youth appears disguised as a peasant, saying they were trained to avoid demons lurking nearby. Gord gives a final warning. Although their appearances have changed, their voices remain the same. They must exercise caution when interacting with acquaintances who might recognize them. Lu explains that by whispering a simple command, either cease, to end the spell, or activate, to revert to the original form, they can manage their disguises instantly. With all instructions clear, Gord and Lezer say their farewells and disappear into the forest. Upon returning home, the craftsman concludes that manufacturing lethal items in that environment isn't feasible. He decides to renovate his workshop instead. While heading to the rear of his cabin, Lu remembers he still has some construction materials left over. Suddenly, King Leonis intercepts him, curiosity evident in his eyes. The king wishes to discuss one more matter before starting the heavy work. He recalls the wanted posters and the difficulty of moving freely amid the treacherous guards now controlling the castle. The king inquires whether the magical disguise items could transform a person into a specific individual rather than a generic stranger. Leet investigates the old man's expression and recognizes a surprising intelligence behind his gaze. He explains that, with some additional effort, such an enchantment is entirely possible. The king admits he doesn't need this power immediately, but requests that Lu produce these special items once the assassination mission is completed. Lu agrees, emphasizing that he will treat this as a new contract, since nothing from a professional craftsman comes without proper compensation. The king nods approvingly with a smile. Suddenly, Lumi rushes onto the scene, excitedly showing her father's clothes, which Maki has restored. The princess quickly picks up on the somber mood and asks if she's interrupted something important. Lu confidently responds that their conversation has just concluded, then quietly withdraws, warning that he will need the king's assistance again later. The girl inquires about her father's recent conversation, but Leonis simply responds that it involved a small, private task. Outside, Lu surveys an empty plot of land and immediately decides it will be perfect for his new workshop. Using a spell, he begins moving massive stone blocks, astonishing Leonis and Lumia with his power. As he works, Lu reflects that his real objective isn't the mage Saddax but the god Mazor, an infamous villain he was hired to eliminate. Employing his fusion and transformation magic, he meticulously shapes the structure, viewing the kingdom and its royalty only as means to an end. Lu admits he knows little about the deity he must face, and therefore, forging a strong alliance with the kingdom of Myoz is vital. He considers that if a god's strength derives from faith, then an entire united kingdom could serve as a powerful weapon to diminish that divine influence. In a matter of seconds, the construction reaches completion, revealing a colossal edifice. At dusk, Gord and Lezer return from the city, unloading the supplies needed to kickstart Leet's forge. Leonis greets them with praise for their efficient work, while Lumia watches, relieved that they arrived safely. Lu approaches a huge crate, marveling at the volume of material Gord and Lezer managed to carry alone. Calculating the weight, he realizes they transported roughly 140 kilos of metals and magical stones. He commends their effort, to which Gord proudly responds that they are elite knights. Without delay, Leet begins opening the boxes, inspecting the metal blocks. Though the metal isn't of the highest quality, he affirms it will suffice for his plans. Gord is quickly astonished as Leet effortlessly lifts 30-kilogram blocks with one hand. Lu points to a cluster of dark, medicinal plants, explaining they were gathered by Lazar along the way. The guard returns some disguise items and mentions that the blonde believed these plants would aid in potion and item crafting. As they enter Leet's new workshop, Gord exclaims in surprise at how quickly and intricately Lu had built such a large structure. Lu warns that he will seal the windows and entrance with magic, asking to be called only in an emergency. Gord agrees but first inquires if Lu keeps his methods secret, as per protocol. Lu confirms, but clarifies that the main reason for the secrecy is that what he does inside is highly dangerous, as tools designed solely for killing are unsafe to leave around. The guard promises to guard the entrance and prevent interruptions, but Lu suggests he use the time to rest and regain his strength. Before isolating himself, Lu reveals he has built an outdoor bath at the back of the workshop and reminds everyone that they plan to leave for the palace the following morning. Gord is overwhelmed with shock as the deadline approaches, unable to believe that the invasion of the kingdom is imminent, set for the early hours of the next day. He questions whether late-night plans are still in motion to utilize all the metal supplies before dawn, and the boy confirms that staying awake all night is necessary, given the urgency of their situation. Our hero emphasizes the critical need to reclaim the palace and the entire nation without delay, leaving no room for rest. Meanwhile, enemy forces continue to strengthen their positions. Gord expresses deep gratitude for the unwavering dedication and then silently withdraws. Lu activates his transformation and item box abilities, summoning several floating magic circles encircling him. With intense focus, he commands the expansion of his magical power, triggering the emergence of a vast technological grid that begins mapping the entire workspace. Mechanical arms and gears animate instantly, processing raw materials with astonishing speed and precision. This secret workshop is officially dubbed the Hidden Mobile Laboratory, Cave of the Impressive Monkey, a sanctuary of creation for the assassin's craft. Lu remains entirely focused, declaring that the time has come to produce the weapons and magical tools that will secure victory the following morning. While Lumia sleeps peacefully and King Leonis relaxes in a bath, the boy works tirelessly through the night, forging weapons and enchanted items. At dawn, a sudden explosion reverberates through the forest, startling birds and signaling the conclusion of Late's field tests. A mechanical crow swiftly flies overhead. However, the hero simply commands, "Ease," causing the device to halt midair. He catches the drone and politely explains to Gordon Laser that the small mechanical bird escaped during the stress tests. Lu assures him that the boxes on the wagon were packed to withstand impacts, preventing damage. King Leonis appears, fully dressed and ready, while Lely confirms that the moment to act has finally arrived. Outside, the hero gathers everyone around the cabin, asking if they still remember every detail of their plan. Gord reassures him that they will infiltrate the city in disguise, waiting at the Waver secret lair-in for the signal to strike. Leonis adds that he will personally handle Sadok once the mage is defeated, clearing the way for the royal escape. Our hero pulls out the disguise stones, asking if everyone is prepared to activate their magic disguises before proceeding. One by one, they shout, "Activate," and clouds of magical smoke envelop the group, instantly transforming their appearances. Gord notices that his appearance has changed from the previous day, and Lu explains that he adjusted the disguises to prevent unwanted street attention. Soon, everyone appears visibly nervous about the operation's start. Princess Lumia is particularly anxious, knowing that if the assassination attempt fails, her country will be lost forever into the enemy's hands. Then, Gord asks an unusual question, curious whether the magic item could also change their gender. The guard reveals that he saw posters seeking 3 men and a girl, so changing the group's appearance would help them avoid detection by the Watchers. Lu agrees, noting that 4 men alone would stand out, and decides that a more effective disguise would consist of 2 men and 2 women. Without delay, our hero prepares to make the final adjustments to the enchanted device Gord carries, redefining the group's new identities. Gord will assume the role of the mother, Lazor will portray the father of a merchant family, and the king along with the princess will act as their children. Leonis, perplexed by the choice, questions whether he might better serve as a merchant than as a knight. Look counters that their true enemy aims to hunt the king, so their disguises should be as inconspicuous as possible, making roles that do not match their true identities crucial. He inquires whether Gordon and Lazor agree with the plan. Both confirm their willingness to do whatever it takes. The craftsman then instructs the guard to activate the transformation device. In an instant, Gord becomes a remarkably tall and striking woman, which prompts complaints from the others about her size, making her conspicuous on the streets. The sight of the once mighty man now transformed into a woman elicits laughter from Princess Lumia. Approaching Lumia, our hero gently places little Maki into the princess's hands and explains that she should carry the small robot, emphasizing that Maki will be a valuable tool once their infiltration begins. Lumia, touched by the gesture, offers thanks, now adopting the guise of a humble traveling family. United by a shared purpose, they set out to reclaim the kingdom of Masses. Their journey begins now.